Hello and welcome to Atelier Sandrine Maugy. In this video we're going to explore the possibilities of Quinacridone Coral, which is a Daniel Smith paint, and the pigment is there in PR209. Other brands call it Quinacridone Red, and I will come back to the reason why Daniel Smith call it Quinacridone Coral. I'm going to show you what the paint looks like on its own, and then I'm going to paint other washes of similar colors to compare. Then we're going to look at some mixes that I have done using Quinacridone Coral, and then I am going to show you the steps of a tutorial I've just done on Patreon of this coral rose. So if you don't know Patreon yet, I have a channel there. At the moment, the first tier is £3 a month, and for that you get access to a whole year of tutorials and color mixing and exercises in tone and composition and all of that. And if you like my tutorials and my videos here on YouTube, you will love Patreon. So I might see you there soon. Now back to Quinacridone Coral. Here's some paint here on its own, and I'm going to show you the reason why Daniel Smith called it Quinacridone Coral. PR209 is a very peculiar pigment. When you paint it quite thickly, it's orange bias, which means that if you look at it on the color wheel, it's close to orange. But if you water it down, the more watery it gets, the pinker it gets. And if you dilute it a lot, it becomes pink biased. So it actually moves from somewhere here to somewhere here. And as far as I know, it's the only pigment that changes its bias depending on how thickly it is painted. And that makes it a very challenging color to use, but also quite playful and very useful when what you want to paint has got that sort of peachy, apricot-y coral color. And this is why Daniel Smith called it Quinacridone Coral, because coral is that color which is not pink, which is not orange, but kind of both at the same time and somewhere in between. And it's not a color that is easy to mix from traditional colors. Quinacridone Coral or Quinacridone Red, if you use another brand, PR209, makes it a lot easier. Quinacridone Coral is transparent, it is light fast, it is non-granulating and non-staining. It's also environmentally friendly, it's not toxic, it's quite saturated, so it ticks all the boxes to start with. But will it live up to all that when I start painting with it? Now let's paint some swatches of other colors next to it to see what they look like. So here I have a Pyrrole Red, PR254, and you can see that this is definitely a lot redder than Quinacridone Coral. And on the other side, I'm going to go with Quinacridone Pink. If you don't have Quinacridone Pink, you probably have Permanent Rose, usually the same pigment. And you can see that this is a lot pinker. More going towards magenta almost. This is definitely a violet bias red. And Quinacridone Coral is somewhere in between. You can see that it borrows some of the red from that, but also some of the pink from that. Now let's have a look at the mixes that I have done with Quinacridone Coral. I have done a range of mixes with yellows and oranges in my palette to see what kind of orange and peaches and apricot mixes that I could get. And I've also done a range of mixes with blues to see what kind of purples I could get. Because Quinacridone Coral is a red, theoretically when mixed with a blue, I will get a range of purples. So let's have a look more in detail what happens when I mix it. When I mix Quinacridone Coral with the yellows and with the reds on my palette. My first yellow is Hansai Yellow Light. This I use instead of a lemon. It's a green bias yellow, just like a lemon. Pigment is PY3. And with that, I get a range of slightly muted oranges on the yellow side, going towards a pretty perfect peach here on the side where there is more quinacridone coral. My second yellow is quinophthalone yellow, and here it's a little bit brighter because quinophthalone yellow is slightly more orange biased than Hansa Yellow Light. It's also very intense pigment, so the colors are more intense. And instead of getting the peachy colors, you go more towards a proper coral color. Mayan Yellow I've introduced because Mayan Yellow has got a lot of texture to it and it's sort of cloudy. So this could be quite a useful color if you want more of a chalky, cloudy color. Then I tried Nicolazo Yellow, and this didn't work very well because Nicolazo Yellow is a very golden yellow and the colors were very muted. I got a range of mustards, and then here towards the end a slightly peachy color but very, very muted. And Hansa Yellow Deep, which is my orange bias yellow. Here I got a range of very strong colors, but it sort of went from orange to a reddish orange without really going through an apricot stage. And this is the mixed here with permanent orange that surprised me the most, because I wanted to see what would happen mixing quinacridone coral with an orange. I thought because I'm starting with an orange, I'm going to get orange very quickly, I'm going to stay orange, and I'm not going to get much of a range. But look at that. This was actually the prettiest array of peach apricot coral colors that I got. It's very, very clear, very pure, and a lovely range, and I was very surprised by that. I wouldn't have really thought of mixing it with permanent orange. I would have thought that was too orange to start with, but it worked really, really well. And then I tried my other orange, Pyrrole Orange, and that was stronger and darker. Not quite, I think these two are just too close. It's quite hard to get something in between. It didn't work as well as with the permanent orange. Now looking at mixing with my blues to get a range of violets. Now you would think that because quinacridone coral, when thinned down a lot, has got a violet bias, it goes more toward pink, I would get a decent range of purples, but actually all the purples were quite muted. I didn't get, even with French ultramarine, which is my violet bias blue, I got a range of very muted sort of mauve colors. I could not get a bright purple with any of the blues. So I've tried French ultramarine, tallow blue red shade, tallow blue green shade, Indian throne blue, and also my genuine turquoise. Now the genuine turquoise didn't really do an interesting purple. However, I got some really nice grays here. So this is a mix I have to remember. I really like that range. But unless you want a very, very muted purple, these colors are not really particularly stunning or particularly interesting. I did get, however, with French ultramarine, I did get a range of colors that looked a bit like potter's pink, but while staying transparent and permanent, which could be useful. Now, looking at the tutorial I did on Patreon, it was a tutorial of this rose. So I started with a couple of washes of yellow, which I wanted to layer with quinacridone coral to give a sort of pale orange to start with. And then I did a layer of pure quinacridone coral on top of the yellow, so layering together, they gave me an orange with a lot of variation. And then I kept on building these colors. The Mayan yellow with the quinacridone coral on the whole of the petals, with some quinophthalone yellow and some Mayan yellow more towards the mid petals to the base. And then after that, to bring it to a proper coral color, I did a glaze of quinacridone pink. And up to that glaze, it was looking like a pale orange rose. But the quinacridone pink really took down the orange and turned that rose into the peach beauty that it was when I first saw it in the shop. So in conclusion, I would say that Quinacridone Coral is a brilliantly useful color. It is definitely set in my palette. It's not going anywhere. I don't use it that often, but when I need it, it's perfect for the job that I need it to do. So if you take into account that it is a transparent pigment, that it is light fast, non-staining, non-granulating and non-toxic, it's definitely a pigment that ticks all the boxes to stain my palette. It makes beautiful smooth washes. It definitely has a space between my reds and my pinks. And painting this rose would not have been the same without it. The tutorial for this rose is on Patreon, but it is also for sale in my Etsy shop, which is called Florist Patch. It's a 10-page tutorial with all the illustrations. There's quite a few tutorials in there. I think this is the 15th one. So if you like botanical tutorials, you should check it out. If you have mixes that you do with Quinacridone Coral that you are fond of, please let us know in the comments below. Share it with all of us. It's always fascinating to see what people mix in their palettes. Now go and have a play with your Quinacridone Coral and let me know how you get on. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you soon in Atelier Sandrine Maugy. Happy painting. Bye.